This is the second video in the series. This is the background video. In the previous video, I talked about a little about me and the outline of this video series. So without further ado, let's get to it. Penetration tests are done to test systems. If you don't have a test done, someone malicious may come along and perform one, however legal, for you. There's the extra cost where system administrators have to bring the system back up, and as this will be a priority, other products are left for later. The same is true. Time is money. System breaches tend to cost an organization a lot of money, and they may lose even more in fines if they weren't performing due diligence activities to protect client data. Also, as some reports have read from other projects from the US, the UK, and Australia, some people, around 40%, will wait to do business with a company that has had a reported breach until 3 to 4 months later, a quarter. And after a breach, while others have been known to not come back at all. So a breach can push customers over to competitors. So it's a good skill to have, even if you're working for a company and you get to be allowed to perform one, assuming you have the right background to do one without any bias. There's the reputation hit that you'll see as well, which is why the customers go other places. So there's a lot of different areas that if a company doesn't perform these type of security things up front, they can end up getting hit on the back end. So before we get started, I want to just talk about legal considerations. I've said it at least 3 or 4 times already, that you need to have written authorization from the party that you're going to do a pen test on. So for our setup, it should be your own system, so you shouldn't need anything from writing. Just ensure that whatever you're trying your payloads on, that you don't type anything in that is wrong, which is why I said in the beginning to make sure you're using unroutable IP addresses, not private schemes, and that you're not trying to do this on a system that's at home and you're not on that same network backbone. Otherwise, to keep it to where you don't make any mistakes, because you can get in a lot of legal trouble. Ensure you should develop a statement of work. So if you're out in the field doing this, before you touch a system, make sure you have a statement of work to you and it is signed by the appropriate personnel on the other side. Make sure you have an area of here about scope creep, so that if after you get started they want to come to you and say, hey, can we just get this little thing done and this little thing done, there's a way to go about it that is organized, and then also so you're not losing out on the monetary side of things. You don't want to keep giving out a bunch of free work and put that into your products if you're not being paid for it. Once written authorization is obtained, you must still act in the best interest of the client. So don't create a back door and then not tell them about it, or don't take data that you think is cool and send it to your friends. This information is usually confidential, and you need to keep it to just work-related stuff. Once you're done with this cycle, you need to make sure that you purge that information and that you're only accessing required items that you need to do what is included in the statement of work. So if you're at a healthcare facility, for instance, and you're testing, let's say, an Exchange server. They have an on-premise Exchange server that you're trying to go over, but you happen to know that someone famous happened to be at a hospital. You want to see what they go there for. You can't do it. It's not in your statement of work. It's not your business. You get a lot of trouble doing that. Later on, I'll show you guys the statement of work, but for now, just keep in mind, again, if you do not have the authorization written and signed to do it, and ensure that even if you have that written authorization, that you are staying within your scope. Risk assessment. A few things to think about to remain safe as well as legal. You're working with electronics. Be careful, you might break a system. You don't want to have static electricity going from one machine to the other or anything like that. You can wipe a hard drive. Anytime you open up a system, ensure that you're unplugging it. Do not unplug anything from your system unless it says you're safe to do so. Pay attention. Make sure that you're only accessing systems you are authorized to. Again, back to what I keep saying. You're going to get tired of me saying this. ASXi free license is good for 60 days. I've heard of ways to back up the machines, reinstall ASXi, and then pull the machines over. You can research those on your own. There are opportunities for it. For what we're doing, we're not going to go in that deep into that. In remediation time, if any of the systems are unintentionally blown up, so if you're doing a scan on the system, you're sending payloads, there's a chance, especially if it's in a production environment, that you might mess the system up. So ensure that in the beginning you have a way to back them up so that you still have them later on. The systems that we're going to be creating, if we blow them up, we'll just go back through, reinstall them, or there's a way that we can do within the ESXi. We can kind of create these little holding cells for them, and then pull them back up and get them back into the system. So now kind of the meat and potatoes of this, of the background. So there are 6 penetration testing domains that I want to talk about: network services, web application, client side, social engineering, and physical, as defined by softwaretestinghelp.com. The first one we'll discuss is network services. This is one of the most commonly performed penetration tests where the openings in the network are identified, by which entry is being made in the systems in the network to check what kind of vulnerabilities there are. This can be done locally or remotely. Remember, going back to the different types of engagements that we're going to get to here in a minute. Web application. It's using software methods. One can verify if the application is exposed to security vulnerabilities. It checks the security vulnerabilities of web apps and software programs positioned in the target environment. Client side it aims to search and exploit vulnerabilities in client-side software programs. Social engineering. In this test, attempts are being made to make a person reveal sensitive information like passwords, business-critical data, etc. These tests are mostly done through the phone or internet, and it targets certain help desks, employees, and processes. Human errors are the main causes of security vulnerability. Security standards and policies should be followed by all staff to avoid social engineering penetration attempts. Examples of these standards include, not to mention, any sensitive information in email or phone communication. Security audits can be conducted to identify and correct these process flaws. So this is often where you see people call up and they say they're from Microsoft's help desk, but they need your password so that you can get a feed that they made a mistake on. Physical, just as it sounds. This may mean jumping a fence, using items that are outside. This could be something as simple as a false ceiling being insecure. In that, from the adjoining room, someone's able to use a ladder to get up and over the wall and drop into the server room, due to the drop ceiling not being properly secured. Just because you have that wall or that door all locked, you need to keep an eye on, well, is that a drop ceiling or is it a true ceiling there? Can they climb in from a different room? Remote dial-up or dial. It searches for modems in the environment and tries to log into the systems connected through these modems by pass regressing or brute forcing. We've got wireless security test. It discovers open, unauthorized, and less secure hotspots or Wi-Fi networks and connects through them. This area would also include things such as evil twins and stuff in public areas. Try and steal your credentials and use them for nefarious purposes. Next, we're going to go over the types of engagements: the gray hat, the white hat, and the black hat. These are more or less the types of engagements that tell you what the tester knows about it. So a gray hat tester has limited details about the environment. It's a simulation of external security attacks. A white hat tester has complete details about the environment. We know systems, the network, operating system being used, IP address schemes, etc. It's a simulation of an internal security attack. Then you have black hat. They assess the target system, network, or process without knowledge of the details. They have a very high level of information, like URLs or company name, to try and penetrate the environment. No code is examined in this method. Now the different types of penetration testing methodology. There are generally 5 stages. It's important due to the nature of what penetration testing is. This will also help when it comes to creating reports for clients at the end as well. 5 stages, according to Waller.com, are as follows. So phase 1, reconnaissance. Accumulate however much data about the objective as can be expected from public and private sources to eliminate the assault technique. Sources incorporate weblook, area enrollment data recovery, social designing, non-intrusive organization checking, and some of the time even dumpster jumping. This data helps the pen tester map out the objectives of assault service and potential weaknesses. Observations can change with the extension and targets of the pen test, and may be just about as essential as settling on a telephone decision to stroll through the usefulness of a framework. Phase 2, scanning. The checking and revelation stage is attempted to discover how the target system will respond to various undertakings at the interference. The passageway analyzer will certainly use mechanized penetration test instruments to check for basic shortcomings. Static examination and dynamic assessment are 2 kinds of approaches utilized by the penetration analyzer. The static examination inspects an application's code, attempting to anticipate how it will react to an intrusion. Dynamic assessment sees an application's code as anything besides being a consistent viewpoint on how it performs. Alternate points of view that a pen tester will discover join association systems, labels, and devices, similarly as an association has. Phase 3, gaining access. When a pen tester has acquired a total comprehension of the extension and segments to be tried, they will assault in a recreated and controlled climate. Impersonating a genuine cyber attack, the analyzer may assume responsibility for a gadget to separate information, play out a web application assault, for example, cross-website prearranging or SQL infusion, or play out an actual assault, as referenced beforehand. The objective of this stage is to perceive how far the analyzer can get into an IT climate without being recognized. The extent of the task ought to figure out where the constraints of the test should, and to ensure PI and other touchy information. Phase 4 is maintaining access. When a penetration tester analyzer has effectively undermined their objective, they should attempt to extend their penetration and keep up their quality to the extent that this would be possible. Once more, the aim is to mirror a true agitator, however much as one could be expected. The analyzer in this stage will grow their authorizations, discover client information, and stay secretive while running their projects further into the IT foundation. For instance, they may attempt to heighten its advantages to the part of the head. The objective here is to stay undetected in the framework to the extent that this would be possible and attempt to get at the most touchy information, as indicated by the venture's extension and objectives. Lastly, we have Phase 5, analysis and WAF configuration. The last stage of pen testing is the evaluation and detailing stage. When the entrance analyzer has been found, or the timetable for the undertaking has been finished, it will produce the last report. The report ought to give a synopsis of the testing, subtleties of each progression the pen tester took to penetrate frameworks and cycles, and ideas for security fixes. A decent analyzer can likewise decide the worth of the undermined frameworks, what amount of monetary effort could their innovation cost, and to do this, an infiltration analyzer utilizes some entrance testing instruments. So as you're going throughout this process, and you're using these to get in and see what you can find and see what you can do, part of your job is to document it. You need to say how you did it, what you used, what you're able to see, all that stuff, so that the security team, after you're done, can go back in and change these loopholes. Remember, a lot of admin tasks are often put in place to make things easier for the admin, but truly all they're doing is growing their attack surface for other people. For example, if I were to put up a router and I wanted to be able to remote into it, but I didn't use SSH, I used Telnet. How much easier would it be for someone to come in, crack that Telnet username and password, and start moving around the system that way than had I used SSH? So with this whole process, that's kind of what we're trying to do, to get the administrator to know, oh, I left something open here. Rather than using Telnet, I can turn around and use SSH, be able to do the same thing in the end result, but it's more secure. Some key takeaways. Again, and you're going to get tired of me saying this, be sure you have permission and doing these things legally and ethically. Ensure that you perform some sort of risk assessment in every single part of this. You're dealing with electronics and electricity, so if you're opening anything up, ensure you have them unplugged from the wall. There are many different disciplines when it comes to pen testing. Pick one to make yourself familiar and move on. It'll be hard, so if you have a friend that can mock up one of these as well, give each other information so you can practice the different types of engagements. Go at one without having any information. Have one that you go in with detailed information so you can practice the different types. Keep in mind, like anything worth learning, there is a process. This process can really help aid you in the beginning. It's not concrete, and some things may overlap. You may find yourself skipping a step here or there. But it's a guideline while learning. As you gain more experience, you'll be able to return to Old Faithful. This is the end of the background section of this video series. Next up is the virtual environment installation. See you then.